Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but I wanted to make sure I get this done. First of all, today I've made a few notes so that I don't get off track. And so this video, I'm going to get right on into it. It's going to be the second part of the discussion about covert narcissism, and the first time I ever really encountered it and didn't quite know what it was. It's really the first time I can remember it, because again, I had been used to grandiose narcissists. I had been used to narcissists that just don't give a fuck. They just abuse you outright. They are overt in their abuse. My father growing up, and early relationships, not my marriage, thank God, not my children's father. He was really good to me. But yeah, I've had some experiences. I've had best friends that were grandiose narcissists. Hey man, and you know, so this is about the covert narcissist, which operates very, very differently. Again, I was used to a different type. And that's why it's so shocking when you run across the covert, because they operate so differently. And so this will be the continuation of the first time I ran across this in the male roommate, who was a platonic friend. He had been a coworker. My children were kind of in grade school then. He had a big house. Several of us moved in at a time. My sister and her boyfriend took a room there. I took a room there. My kids and they had a room, and the male roommate lived downstairs. So it was a big roommate situation. And these things played out. At one point, everybody else left, and it was just he and I kind of there together, and that's when these things began. And so I'm going to get into that. I'm also doing my makeup. I'm getting ready to go to work. So bear with me, but we're going to get right into that. And I just wanted to finish it up because the first video cut off. And yes, I did put out video number 1 the other day. I also posted it on my Facebook, and it cut off on me. So, you know, I'm trying to be more committed to this channel. I started it a while back. I've been extremely busy, really trying to put my life sort of back in order. But this is important to me. I do want to make time for it. It really does take time, you know, when you're working and you're trying to keep your life balanced, and you need to film video content as much as possible, and then you need to do the editing, and you know, you want to put something into it. It can be time consuming, but it means a lot to me, and so I want to start being very regular with that. So I also want to say thank you guys, really thank you, those of you whoever clicked on this video, for watching me, for leaving me comments, thoughts. I really appreciate it. Not only does it help me to interact with folks, but it helps my channel grow. I really appreciate that. So just bear with me while I'm trying to put on makeup here. I haven't had much sleep tonight. So yeah, and I wanted to kind of make summaries and little notes of each thing I wanted to touch on, to kind of get to, you know, because I will put out a video and then I'll rewatch it and I'll go, oh man, I should have made that point. I should have finished that up, you know. So then I kind of have to make a part 2 to make some other points clear or finish it up. But yeah, I want to thank you guys again. If you get something out of the videos I'm putting out, please hit like. Please hit like, because it will help me. I'm still growing here. I'm still starting out. Hit like, hit subscribe, because I promise you I'm going to have ongoing content. I'm not going to have all the same content. I know I probably should, but I'm going to be doing different sections on different topics from my life. So yeah, please do that. I really appreciate that. And so really, I just want to say that before we get into the covert narcissism and the rest of the roommate story, you know, basically what my ultimate goal here is to assist people. Really. Really. I'm not here to run people down, even though I might sound petty or shitty or angry sometimes. I'm going to do that. That's my personality. I can be animated. That's just my personal expression. And sometimes I do have a lot of anger in me, and I have every right to express it. At least I'm doing it in a fucking positive way. That's kind of just the way I look at that. But ultimately in my heart, my goal, I'm here really to assist people and help in any way that I can, by empowering, helping to break mental traps, helping to educate, help people evolve emotionally, spiritually, free people of toxic patterns, and basically just by sharing my personal experiences and what works for me. All I can do is be an example in my own lane, and I can share my personal past, my experiences, what's worked for me, you know, because I'm not giving advice, I'm not a doctor, none of that. These are just personal things that have worked for me and the things that have happened with me. You know, and the best way we can help other people, honestly, is not to meddle in their lives, not to try and save, not to try and fix them, not to try and force or control, but is to be an example in our own lane. Period. Period. Do our thing, okay? And that's important to me. These videos are important to me. This is my purpose. These are my things. This is my way of helping even more to heal a bad childhood, a traumatic childhood, helping to heal the past of people, friends who betrayed or traumatized me, relationships perhaps. This is my way of using it to win, to use the adversity to empower myself and transform myself. So that's what this is kind of all about. It's not about bashing. It's not about hating, even if I do get a little shitty attitude every once in a while. Hey man, I'm just me. I am authentic. That's what's up. So yeah, let's move on. Let's get on into it. So going back to part 1, I need to put a link below. I need to start doing that when I make videos, like 1 and 2. I need to start putting links in the comments or in the description or whatever, so that my viewers can easily get to part 1 or whatever. And I fully intend to do that. I want to put far more time into the channel and do things like that for you guys. So I left off on the roommate at the end of the first video. I was talking about how he didn't like it that I could see him. He didn't like it that I could fucking see the truth. You know, I had already been through so much of my life at that point. I was approaching 30 years old. I had been over there 5 years. So I got over there in my mid-20s, late 20s. I had already been through so much. Excuse me 1 second. Oh, Lord. Well, there goes that. Crap. I had some coffee on and I burned it. Oh, well. I'm ready to go get fresh coffee. So I had already been trained enough. I had years of therapy, thank God. I had already been through a crazy childhood. So it didn't really, you know, it didn't really take me long to sense and to know something's up with this man. Something's up, something's not right about his demeanor when he's confronted by me. He acts passive aggressively. I know he has trouble expressing himself and really communicating on an adult level. And over the years I began to see it more and more. But as I said in part 1, it can take you a while, training or no training. Whether you grew up in toxicity or not, whether you've had experience with toxic people or not, whether you're strong or not, sometimes it just doesn't matter. Sometimes it can really take you a while to put it all together. And even when you do start putting it all together, it's going to be very perplexing to you because a lot of people are not educated on covert narcissism. They don't know how it operates, okay? So, and a lot of us, we don't want to think badly of others. A lot of times when we're close to somebody, be it a best friend, a roommate, a partner, family member, whoever it is, a lot of times we don't want to think badly of others. We really want to think the best of them. We really want to think that there is goodness in them and that they're not doing these things. And so a lot of times we may blind ourselves. We may go, nah, come on, that's not happening. Come on, give them a chance. That's ridiculous. We will go through all of that, but it is happening, I promise you, with these covert narcissists. Absolutely. So I left off where he did not like that. None of them do. They all have a lot of toxic shame, and they don't respond to other adults like adults would. And so my notes are kind of out of order, but let me explain that. What it really stems from is because they have a sort of arrested development. They are grown people. They might be educated. Hell, they might have a PhD. I'm not saying they are unintelligent or lacking in education. Some of them are, some of them aren't. It's the emotional intelligence they don't have, okay? It's the EQ. IQ is different. You know, a lot of them are high IQ, smart as hell, talented, full of potential, good people. Everybody, nobody, I'm going to start marking off because I'm skipping around in my notes here. Nobody is all good or all bad. Even a fucking narcissist. Because we have to remember, narcissism falls on a spectrum. Now I'm really getting out of order. But we have to remember that. Narcissism falls on a spectrum. We all have narcissism. We all have narcissistic tendencies or traits. We have to. And I got this straight from a psychologist, Lena Derhally, who specializes in couples therapy, relational dynamics. I got this. She wrote a book about the Chris Watts murder case. I believe he was a covert narcissist as well. So let me slow down here. See, I'll lose my train of thought because I get going too fast and I'm skipping around on my notes, but I really want to get it out there and get it understood while I'm telling the story of the roommate, kind of how they operate and what's going on there. Statistically, studies show and statistics show that most narcissism comes from trauma, abuse, and neglect. It can come from overindulgence of a child, never giving a child consequences. That's a type of neglect. So it all kind of works together. Even if they were overindulged, say they weren't beaten, abused, molested, horribly neglected, but say they never got consequences. Oh, little Tommy can have whatever you want. You can do no wrong. They were never held accountable. They were never taught that shit. They never got consequences. They were always overindulged, spoiled, given everything they wanted. That's abuse. Dr. Phil, I was watching Dr. Phil the other day, and he was so right. A mother was doing that to her daughter, and her daughter was spoiled rotten, talking about she needed $3,000 a month allowance, and she didn't want her new Mercedes. She wanted a $250,000 car. You talk about little fucking narcissist that's being raised there. That, and Dr. Phil told the woman straight up, you know that's abuse. You are abusing your daughter. I know, right? We don't think about that, do we? A lot of times that's not thought about while you're overindulging or enabling someone and giving and giving and giving and giving and hoping that they will get better. Or if they're your child, grown child even, hoping that they will do the right things. A lot of times that's more about you. That's more about you wanting attention. You want to be the good mommy. You want to be the friend. You want to be the good daddy. You want to be the friend and the hero more than the fucking parent and the example. A lot of times all that overindulgence is more about you and your fucking problems. Don't be your kid's friend. Don't overindulge them. Give them what they need, which is guidance, example, and consequences for their actions. Hold them accountable. I'm just saying what works for me. Not giving advice, not a doctor. I have raised 2 sons. My sons are in their 20s, and they're doing pretty well. So, that's what worked for me. But yes, statistically, it typically comes from really hardcore trauma. Beating, abuse, molestation, hardcore neglect. But also spoiling, overindulging, and just that is a way of neglecting that child's needs. That child needs proper adult guidance and rules and boundaries and consequences. So that's also abuse. So that is where typically narcissism stems from. I just wanted to give a few little rundowns on where it kind of begins. You can study up on it yourself if you're interested, because it's very complex study. It's very complex study, and if you want to know the origins of it, you should definitely research that and double check. You know, I'll always double check anything I watch on YouTube. But yeah, typically it starts in childhood. I even had it. I mean, again, we need to remember it falls on a spectrum. We all have a little bit of it, like I say, from psychologist Lena Derhally in her book and her breakdown. A lot of people would call that healthy ego, where we outgrow a lot of those narcissistic tendencies. As children, we're kind of narcissistic, and teenagers, we're kind of narcissistic. Most of us outgrow it, or we get therapy, we get help if we were raised in trauma, thank God. Some of us do, some of us don't. And so what happens when a child is severely abused or neglected, or growing up in a family who neglects them, who doesn't pay any attention to them, be it horrific abuse, be it mild to moderate abuse, neglect, overspoiling. What happens is, if the trauma is too deep, they can split off. And I was very narcissistic growing up too, but I was more of the grandiose type. I think I went back and forth between grandiose and covert. Like, when I needed to be manipulative, I knew how to be. And so it's an identity issue. They don't have a sense of identity. It never really formed. Like I say, it's a type of arrested development where they might be grown men and women. They might have a high IQ, but they never developed emotionally. They might be 10 emotionally. They might be 13 emotionally. That's right. They are not going to be very good at socializing, social things, relationships, really connecting to people deeply, communicating with other adults on a very sort of assertive and comfortable and confident adult level about their needs and their feelings. All of those things are going to come into play, and they store it all up. And so basically what you're looking at is a big child. Absolutely. You might be looking at a grown man or woman mentally and emotionally. I'm not saying mentally as far as IQ. Of course, they look and act like adults. They're a lot of them, most of them are educated. But really what you're looking at emotionally is a child. And you will see it, whether they drink or do drugs or not. That makes it far worse. But whether they're sober every day or not, my male roommate and the people that I met after him, when I started really learning about covert narcissism, and I attracted it more after that for some reason, something I needed to go through and something I needed to learn. Maybe just so I could be here today giving this to you. I don't know. But my male roommate did have very boyish reactions to very simple adult things. You know, is this yours or is it not? Did you do this or did you not? Listen, we need to discuss something and talk about how we feel about this and kind of get this squared away. Anything that he would ever be confronted on, any type of adult communication, it would always be that classic trademark little boy reaction, defense mechanism, gaslighting, lying. I didn't do anything. Well, I think that's enough. I'm just going to leave the room. He would always respond like a fucking 5-year-old boy. And I noticed later on with others I met, that is a pattern with them. So now you have an idea of kind of what goes on in a covert narcissist. There's a type of arrested development, a type of emotional immaturity, where they're not really operating on an adult emotional level. They have a very hard time coping with adult things, relating to adults. It's very complex and complicated. So, but that's kind of where it begins in childhood. They split off. Sometimes the trauma, the loss, like my male roommate lost his mother at 11. Father was an alcoholic and neglectful. Other ones that I know of have been abused and hurt and neglected. So sometimes the trauma is so great that instead of trying to stay in their body and in their mind and fight for themselves and learn and grow and develop a strong sense of self and identity and who am I and what am I here for and what do I like to do, and instead of growing like that, they kind of split off into a false identity. They don't feel good enough. They have low self-esteem. They have no confidence. They have inferiority complexes, and they're very wounded. And so they have to develop a false identity, the narcissistic mask. The narcissistic identity begins to develop because it protects them. And they do all of these toxic things. They live in a lot of fantasy. It stems from there. So now we kind of know where it stems from. Not everybody's case is the same. Not everybody's going to be the same at all. I'm just saying that's basically kind of where it starts. And so moving along, I've got to finish my makeup and get going, but I wanted to make this a point to finish this up and get it out there for you guys. So I've been kind of skipping around and giving you different parts of information. I left off, okay, Let's see here. Yeah, I told you, the more I could see the truth about him and confront him, the more. Now, I also noticed not only those types of things, but the more I would confront him, they don't handle that well. They have a lot of toxic shame for being confronted. It's almost like a small child would react like, oh, my mommy is reprimanding me. Hey, man. Hey, man. Yeah. And I do have some contempt in my tone. I do, because that helps me to heal. And I have every right to heal. And it helps me to release. And fuck it, they do act that way. And I assure you, every person that I might refer to or talk about in that way, I assure you, in each instance and situation, I bent over backwards to be real with them, to give them a chance after chance after chance to heal and grow, to stop doing what they were doing to me. I gave them compassion and friendship. I gave them the real. That's right. I can assure you, each situation that I may be scoffing at, I can assure you that I was real with them, and I tried to be a friend, and I tried to get them to stop doing what they were doing to me. After that, the way I see it is, if you fucking have the balls to keep betraying me like that and doing weird things to me like that and lying and twisting and manipulating and being crazy and weird, if you're creepy enough to creep on me, that's the way I see it, and betray me like that, then you better be creepy enough, you're going to be creepy enough to get your story told. How about that? We all have consequences for our actions, so how about you just don't creep on people? How about y'all just take your narcissistic selves into therapy and face down your shit and quit being so afraid and I don't need any help? How about you get your asses down there and get some help? How about you study? Instead of using your free time to creep on people and be weird, instead of using your free time, I gotta find a partner. Or instead of using your free time to do the fucked up shit y'all do, or check out of your brain or whatever it is y'all do, why don't you use your fucking free time to grow out of that shit? Like the rest of us had to do that grew up in the same trauma. That's the thing about a narcissist. They think they're entitled. Every single one of them, I don't give a fuck. The covert operates differently than the grandiose. The grandiose, you can see their entitlement. Covert, you can't see it. They seem to be really humble and, oh, I'm nothing. Nobody loves me. I'm just a pile of dog shit. That's how they will talk about themselves. They operate more like a toxic codependent. It's almost hard to tell the difference between a covert narcissist and a toxic codependent. The way they attach to people and the way they people please and the way they beg for any attention, any approval, they really do operate differently than the damn grandiose narc. It's really hard to see these covert narcissists. It really is, and pick up on them. Or an unawakened empath. They operate more like that. So it is hard to see them. Anyway, moving along. Yeah, they have that whole, the more I confronted him though, like an adult, even if I had a calm, assertive tone, it didn't matter how polite I was. If I brought up subject matter that he felt like threatened him or embarrassed him, the more passive aggressive he would become. And he would do secretive things to get me. That's the calling card of the covert narcissist. They want to get you. They want to get everybody because of their fucked up childhoods and the neglect and the, hey, it is what it is, man. It's not our fault. It's not our fucking fault because half of us went through more motherfucking abuse than they did. And if we can motherfucking heal and take responsibility for it and not hurt people, they can too. That's the way I see it. So, yeah, they have that whole mentality. That's their theme. And, yeah, they want to get people without people ever knowing they're doing it. Secretly. Cowardly. It's pretty sick and twisted to me. And they just can't communicate on an adult emotional level and just say, here's how I feel. I don't like this. This needs to be squared away. No, they can't do that. And so, okay, I talked about the arrested development, the emotional maturity, how they stop growing as a child. A lot of people that went through abuse and trauma stop growing at a certain age. I know that happened to me. I had to have a lot of therapy. I had to do a lot of work. Okay. Yeah, they're stuck there. That's how they respond and relate. Toxic shame when they're caught, instead of just admitting and owning and changing. Not knowing, they would be far more respected if they would just say, yeah, I just did that, man. I did that. I did that to you. I've got some issues, and I'm really sorry, and I'd like to solve those issues and not do this to you again. That would gain them so much respect, but they will never do that. Ever. Pathological liars, pathological envy of everybody. They will take that shit right to your face, even if you just stood there and watched them do it. They will gaslight you to death. Because it all stems from a really terrified place. Is my mommy going to hit me? Or is something terrible going to happen to me? Or, well, everybody's just going to shame me and laugh at me anyway. So why should I speak up about how I feel or the truth? It's really actually kind of sad. And that is what will also suck you into their web, is you will feel for them. I do. Because I come from a past similar to that. So we have to be very careful, those of us who are doing our work. And we are not about manipulating and conniving and using and sucking the energy of other people. We're not about all that twisted shit. We have to be very careful with our fucking energy and who we let in and what's going on there. So, yeah, they have no account for their actions, and they most of them never will. They are too afraid. They are stuck somewhere way back in that programming, and that's what it is. And it is sad, but you cannot feel sorry for them. That's what they want. That's how they trap you into their web. And you'll want to really badly, because a lot of them operate in a very vulnerable, self-pity, sob story, poor me. And you will want to love that part of them, help them heal. That's not your place. So you got to understand these things, because most of them don't want to change. They want to ensnare you, and they will never. They might tell you they're working on themselves. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll work on that. They're really good at saying words. You'll never see it in their action. Okay. They intellectually understand who they are. Oh, yeah. Even if you explain all these things to them, they intellectually know what they're doing. They understand who they are. But emotionally, they are not feeling it. It's not really connecting what they're putting people through, what they're really doing, or even what they are going through. They don't even know who the fuck they are. They haven't felt themselves in so long and sorted through and processed their wounds and pain and emotions. They don't know what's what. So yeah, no account for it, just shame and lies. And so moving on really quickly, yeah, it is. It's just a big old toxic mess. And let's see, I talked about that. Deep in childhood, toxic shame, fear. Oh, I did mention it may look like mental illness to you. I mentioned that in the first part of my first covert narcissistic experience video with the male roommate. I mentioned that you're not going to know what to think. If you get around a covert narcissist, depending on, everybody's different, depending on who they are, what they were raised around, the level of their trauma neglect, or if they were just spoiled or whatever it was, depending on who they are, they're all different. You're not going to know what to make of them. And for a minute, it may look like mental illness to you. You'll be like, damn, are they computing anything I say? Do they have mental illness? Do they have a disorder? It kind of looks like that sometimes. So let me break this down. And some of them may have a mental illness or disorder on top of their covert narcissistic tendencies. They may have all kinds of issues in one. You never know. But what will happen is, it's like, sometimes it'll look like sometimes they can't help it. Like they're just really goofy and aloof. And, oh, I forgot. They mess things up a lot. They don't have good memory about following instructions. And that part of them, it'll almost be childlike, and it'll almost look like they just can't help it. Like there's a part of their brain that just, and me personally, I feel like that comes from years and years of denial and some type of trauma that happened to them in childhood that made them check out. Like the male roommate lost his mother at 11, probably did not get counseling. Dad didn't give a fuck. Drunk ass dad neglected him pretty much, threw him out in the yard. You know, wasn't good to him. Probably nobody talked to him about the death of his mother. And so I feel like that goofy, what? I feel like that whole ordeal on them, that they look kind of goofy and aloof and detached and distracted and almost childlike in a way. They can't carry out instructions very well. Sometimes they have a hard time learning, sometimes retaining information, sometimes all kinds of things. And they will walk right over your fucking boundaries again and again and again and again. All of these things, they will keep doing it. Okay, so a part of that will make you think, you know, I think it stems from, severe neglect in the childhood. I think it comes from a really traumatized place, and they fucking checked out when they were a kid. They couldn't take it. It was a survival mechanism back then. It was a defense mechanism back then. They just had to detach and check out. But they never grew back in. They never got themselves back in and incorporated the child, the wounded child, with the growing adult and made that work. They never did that inner child work, and they got stuck there. So a part of it is they're going to look like they can't really help it. Like, damn, is this mental illness or what is it? And I think it's both, okay? The second thing I'm going to mention is that also lots of times it looks like it's on purpose. Like, are you just fucking with me? Are you just provoking me and fucking with me and twisting me and doing little things to me behind the scenes to get at me, to get a rise out of me, to hurt me for some reason? Simply because I spoke to you in an assertive manner like an adult and I confronted you on something? Are you really doing these things? Part of it is you're going to see that they are doing it on purpose. They'll be doing little behaviors that stress you or hurt you or anger you, and they will do it again and again, and you'll question, is it on purpose? And you goddamn right it is. They know what they're doing. And once they see that it got a rise out of you, covert narcissists love narcissistic supply. Narcissists live on your energy, harvesting your energy. They can't make their own energy. They can't be happy. They can't have a positive ego. They can't do any of that, their own shit. They need yours. And so they love to get a rise out of people. They love to make other people hurt. Like a little child who doesn't know how to cope. I can remember being a little abused girl, being beaten and hurt and molested, and I didn't know what to say. I was too young. I didn't know how to tell anyone. I would pick on other kids. That's what little children do when they're being hurt and abused and they have no voice. They hurt other kids. Kids that might be littler than them or whatever. They push them down and they bully